This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
We are here on a Football Friday edition of Money Moves. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you here for the final stretch. We are this much closer to Super Bowl Sunday, our final show of the week, although come Sunday, JVT and I will be on the desk in the 2 hours leading up to kickoff. And it's crazy. We're after weeks of talking about this game, JVT, we're finally about there.
Yeah, I think I always get to this time of the week and say, thank God. Like, we just need to get there. We've talked about every angle. We've beaten this thing to death. There's so many different ways that you can get it, and we get different opinions. But I'm about ready, I don't know about you, to get this game started and to see what's going to happen here. So I am excited that we are on our final Football Friday of this football season.
And that's actually a great segue to toss to the rundown, because when we hit our guest list, one of them sent me a text this morning that said, I am so done talking about this game, but we got one more day of it, so let's hit the rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
And that person who sent me the text, JVT, was the one and only Will Hill. But I am excited to get his final Super Bowl pick. Same thing for Mike Palm, VP of Operations here at Circa. In addition to how he's playing the game, we'll get the latest from behind the counter here at Circa Resort and Casino. And we're going to get into a little NBA today as well with Zach Cohen, the NBA trade deadline officially in the rear view, his reaction to all of that, plus the 6-game card we've got on deck today.
Yep, looking forward to it and getting these opinions and talking a little bit more about what we're going to see. But as we've talked about before, you know, basketball finally taking a little bit more center stage. We're post-trade deadline. College season is getting, I would say, down to the nitty and the gritty at this point right now that we are in February. So really looking forward to turning the page and talking a little bit more about that with Will and with Zach.
Yeah, and actually an important injury yesterday, too, with Luka Doncic, who goes down in the second quarter. He's having an MRI today, so we'll discuss a lot of things in the association, and even a little hockey, too, because the Olympics opening ceremony underway today. I know Mike Palm has some hockey opinions there, but as we continue to roll along with this guest list, the legend himself, Brent Musburger, is going to join us in studio out here in Vegas. Super excited to have him on to not only get his Super Bowl pick and some of his angles, but here's some stories. We're going to get story time with Brent today.
Yeah, we'll take people behind the scenes a little bit here. We have our weekly meetings at the Vegas Stats and Information Network, and we played a clip today of Brent Musburger for our first Super Bowl broadcast. And not seen in the video was a snot-nosed 26-year-old Jonathan Von Tobel behind the glass, very much producing and getting ready for our first broadcast. So it's been a long ride. Can't wait to hear what Brent has to say, and maybe he will revisit his "turn out the lights, folks, party's over" line from the Falcons-Patriots Super Bowl that is very infamous around these parts.
Yeah, we talked about that 28-3 yesterday, because yesterday was the official 9-year anniversary of that game. Crazy to think, VSiN on its 10th Super Bowl broadcast day coming up this weekend, so that will be fun to get into. And we're going to start here talking a little NFL, because obviously we had the NFL honors yesterday, and as a part of the award show, we finally found out who took home those season-long awards. Congrats to you on finally cashing your Carson Schlesinger 18-1 Defensive Rookie of the Year, and our Matthew Stafford MVP tickets get home as well, albeit, and as you saw on the graphic, a photo finish. Stafford wins his first MVP by just 5 points over Drake May, 24 first-place votes to May's 23. It's the closest MVP race since Peyton Manning and Steve McNair as co-MVPs back in 2003.
Yeah, and very controversial when you talk about the way that it ended, and maybe another voter throwing his hat in the ring with an off-radar first-place vote as well. I will say this. So I actually talked to one of the MVP voters today out there on Radio Row, and was kind of getting the sense of, hey, look, what do you view as MVP? How did you have the process? And this voter was a voter for Matthew Stafford. He put Matthew Stafford in first place for this thing, had Drake May second, did not have Justin Herbert on his top five. But he had talked about, and I think it's a fair point, where, look, these are awards where it is up for your interpretation. When you talk about awards like most valuable player, I actually brought up to him comeback player of the year and how that works for him and what they've been dealing with over the last couple of years. And he said, I have my interpretation of most valuable, but the way that this is set up, you are allowed to interpret it how you want. And there's really and I think this is the best point from him, Stormy. He told me there is no wrong vote. And I think that's probably like the way you look at this here. We all have our opinions. Everything gets pretty ugly, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, like these people are given the opportunity to vote for this. A lot of them, all of them, take it seriously, and they're kind of left with the expectation of, hey, this is how you do it, and this is how it came to be.
I do disagree with that to an extent that I think Justin Herbert was probably a wrong vote, but I understand the general concept of where we sit on that one.
We can't open this can of worms.
That voter, by the way, was the same one, and this is like another part of it that's made the rounds, was the same one that cost Jaden Daniels to have a unanimous Offensive Rookie of the Year vote because he, I think, put the first place vote for Brock Bowers. And so that's another thing, too. We talked about for Offensive Rookie of the Year last couple years ahead of this season where Tetairoa McMillan ends up bringing that one home last night. But what could have been for guys like Puka Nacua or Brock Bowers had C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels not existed because they had such masterful seasons, but the quarterback position always is going to prevail on top. That said, obviously you and I had money invested on Matthew Stafford, so we are pleased with the razor-thin results that we got when all was said and done, but a lot of people online very upset about that Justin Herbert vote in particular potentially costing Drake May.
Yeah, well, but here, okay, so there's two things I'd like to address there. And first off, I should note, the MVP voter I talked to, because I did have an interview with him, is Dave Burkett of the Detroit Free Press, who I spoke to. He's actually a Hall of Fame voter as well. We talked a little bit about the Hall of Fame process, too. But he didn't, Sam Monson, who was the voter who's come out and said that he voted for Justin Herbert, I would like to very quickly dispel, it did not cost Drake May. He had Matthew Stafford second. So even if he had won, even if he had wanted to, because I see a lot of people.
That's how everyone's taking it online, freaking out, for sure.
Well, right. But everybody online is then stupid for taking it as such because his order was Herbert, Stafford, and May. So even if he had eliminated Herbert from his discussion for whatever reason, that voter also still believed that Stafford was ahead of Drake May, and Matthew Stafford still would have won the award. So that to me is absolutely ridiculous. I keep seeing that thrown out that it cost Drake May. No, it didn't, because this guy still had him ahead. At the end of the day, look, this is a conversation which gets very stupid almost every single year. In our space, it gets even stupider because, as I say every single time, and we'll talk about this when we get to the end of the NBA season, we'll talk about it when we get to the end of the Major League Baseball season, we don't have real conversations about these anymore. All we do is just discuss, hey, I have this in my ticket or in my pocket, and I think this is why it should win. But I will say this, I think at the end of the day, when we talk about what happened with the award, Stormy, what was fascinating, Mitch Moss was tracking this all yesterday, these odds were moving yesterday. So people were kind of taking shots at where they were going to go. And what have we talked about this whole time? Like the MVP market, the awards markets don't really know what's going on. And part of it, and I talked to two MVP voters about this. One of them was Burkett. The other was our own Adam Shine, our former colleague. And I asked them about the process, both of them. And I said, do you just drop in at the end of the year? What do you do? And both of them were like, yeah, like that's at the end of the year, I accumulate everything essentially. Like, of course I watch, but then I really go down at the end of the year and talk about it. So the stupidity that we have every single week of the awards markets moving up and down and left and right. Shine was laughing at it. He was telling me, he's like, I thought it was crazy watching those awards every single week move on the odds when I'm sitting back and going, I haven't decided. I haven't changed my mind. I haven't done anything. And I think that's one of the takeaways we should have as well.
Yeah, I mean, that said, still even though the odds fluctuate for us, it can be opportunistic, right? And like that's how it played out with us with the Matthew Stafford tickets in general. On a down week for him and an up week for Drake May, we were able to get back to a plus money price after he was odds on. So there is, I think, value in us watching those markets. But to your point, when all is said and done, the decision isn't made until the end of week 18. And that's just the way that it's going to play out. And Matthew Stafford, 4,700 yards, 46 touchdowns, led the league in both of those categories, top 5 in the majority of them, oldest player now to win his first MVP in NFL history, third oldest player ever. So congratulations to him. Did you watch any of the NFL Honors Award show by chance yesterday? I know you're busy running around tracking down interviews and doing all this stuff, but did you get to watch?
I did not get to watch it all, and I was somewhat busy doing somewhat important things. But no, I had to look it up on my phone. In fact, where I was at, somebody had come from the NFL Honors, and I asked them, and I was like, wait a minute. Like, who won? And then, of course, they're like, oh, I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. But you were paying attention. I'm like, wait. And so I had to pull my phone. Yeah, and I had to pull my phone out and start Googling what was going on. Yeah.
Some people. That said, I'm sure you saw some of the clips still floating around, a lot of awkwardness. And whether it was Jackson Smith and Jigba winning Offensive Player of the Year, and the way that the comedian social media guy Drewski pronounced his name was awful and awkward and terrible. And then Tiffany Haddish, too, when she announced Coach of the Year for Mike Vrabel, she called him Mike Verbal. And that was one of those things where I don't understand how, I get if you're not a football person, you're a celebrity and you're having, and they want your platform to be up there and bring other people into potentially watching this event because of you. But how you don't teach those people or have a card that has the proper pronunciations of the people that are winning these awards, because that's a big moment. Like winning Coach of the Year, that's a very cool thing. And to have the announcement on the stage be pronounced wrong, I just think is odd, especially considering you think about the draft and how much we've seen the behind the scenes stuff of how they have these cards written out with phonetic pronunciations for every single player that comes up to at least give these people a chance. I don't get how for an award show like this, you don't have that.
Well, I think the JSN stuff was, I'll say, purposeful when you talk about what he was doing up there.
Which is awful if so.
Yes, it's not great comedy, I will say that. The other part, I didn't see the Haddish clip, so yeah, maybe she messed up, and I'm with you. If that's a true mess up, I mean, you got to have this right.
For sure.
I mean, it's a big moment. Yeah, you have to be able to get this right. But this is the reporter in you. This is the sideline reporter that very much taught me very quickly at the beginning of the year that Jaren Kiave Sangopulatele is how you say a name. And I know that means a lot to you, getting names correctly.
And boy, did you nail it just there. Again, we are a program that talks about college football probably a little bit too much. But yes, kudos to you. You mentioned it, though. The Hall of Fame class also named yesterday. Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Luke Kuechly, all three first ballot Hall of Famers. Adam Vinatieri also getting in, 4-time Super Bowl champ. And Roger Craig, 3-time Super Bowl champ with my Niners. First player to have 1,000 rushing and 1,000 receiving yards in a season. Very happy for him to get in on the senior portion of the ballot. Long overdue, probably. We're going to step aside here on Money Moves. When we come back, Mike Palm joining us in studio, talking through all things Super Bowl 60 and more.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools, but what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
The biggest game of the year deserves more than a guess, and VSiN's Super Bowl betting guide is out right now. It's built to help you bet the game smarter. Inside this year's guide, we've got in-depth breakdowns of both teams, Steve Makinen's Super Bowl simulation with detailed player projections, plus favorite prop bets, picks, and best bets from all of your favorite VSiN show hosts and experts. You can download the guide right now for just $19.99 or become a VSiN Pro subscriber. Get the Super Bowl betting guide included with all our daily best bets, real-time bet splits, and so much more. Everything you need, one game, one edge. Finish the football season strong. VSiN.com/guide. That's VSIN.com/guide. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you, and the one and only Mike Palm, VP of Operations here at Circa Resort and Casino, on the desk with us live to talk through all things Super Bowl 60. It's a busy week, I imagine, for you and the crew.
First, I want to say thanks to Jonathan for taking the full 2 hours while traveling to do the show with us.
Because I've never done that before either. Yeah, I know. I've never done it.
Your percentage of doing it is much lower than JVT's percentage of doing it, and I want that to be recognized.
I want it to be recognized that I have
What's my
Fridays
percentage?
Off.
You and Lombardi.
What's my percentage?
Fridays off during football. 100%, John. 100%.
It's not 100. Maybe this season 100.
It is 100. It is totally 100%. What are you talking about?
Maybe right now. You've never taken a day off in your life. Also, I have Fridays off. That's part of my schedule.
Okay.
You guys are mean. I don't know what's happening right now.
Well, I like to. Well, then I'm observing John going above and beyond. He's doing double duty. He didn't go out there on his own. He went out there for VSiN. Okay.
VSiN was secondary.
No shot. No shot.
That said,
it's a busy week, Stormy. Yes, it is.
Enough about me. Let's talk about you.
Well, it's a busy week. Yes, it is. And we're hoping people start coming because they made their reservations and they've made their deposits. So we assume that they are going to be coming. It's really strange this year. There's very little buzz about this game, Stormy.
Yeah.
Very, very little buzz. And the booking patterns have changed really post-pandemic to where people don't come on Friday anymore of Super Bowl weekend. 20 years ago, everybody was here by Friday afternoon that was coming for the weekend to Las Vegas. Now people really show up in bulk on Saturday. So it's still pretty slow out there. But, we're going to have 15,000 people at our various parties on Sunday. So, yeah, it'll be exciting. And once the game kicks off, we won't notice that nobody cared for 2 weeks.
Mike, what do you think in terms of like the quietness around this? Is there a confluence of factors? Is it more people using the apps? Is it people maybe aren't as interested? Do prediction markets, are they growing enough in popularity that would detract from people who want to be interested in this game? What do you think are the factors?
Well, that's a very interesting question, John, because I think Derek was just on Bloomberg talking about prediction markets. And, Polymarkets wrote $1 billion last year, and they've already written almost $700 million this year to date. And Kalshi's at 162 million as of noon Eastern time today. That definitely could be part of it. I don't know if there's a fatigue at all. Is the quarterback matchup sexy enough? I think Stafford versus May, which was one of the closest MVP votes we've ever had, as we revealed in the pronunciation key that was the NFL awards show last night. I mean, that was like Chuck Long and Bo Jackson for the Heisman. That's how close that vote was. Did you see there was a vote for Justin Herbert?
Yeah.
There was a vote for Justin. That person needs to maybe be examined a little bit on that vote. I get Josh Allen. Because if you take him off the Bills team, they're like 4-13 probably. And they didn't know at the time, but playing with a broken foot. But I don't know. We'll see. I don't think our betting volume is going to be any less when it's all said and done. But I do think when the Super Bowl was here a few years ago, and how much the pricing went up. I mean, the hotels were 250% of what they normally were. I think sometimes people got froze out, and they had to find different options that year where they were going to go, where they had normally come to Vegas. And I think we still see the effects of that.
Okay, that's interesting that even though that was a unique situation, the Super Bowl is not going to be here every single year, that has had an effect moving forward?
I think that, Stormy, and personally, I think the Super Bowl should be on a 3-year rotation between Miami, New Orleans, and Las Vegas. I think that would be the perfect cadence, right? And you appease. You still have an outdoor game. You still have 2 grass games because we have grass here, even though it's in a dome. And they're the more walkable cities, right? These cities, they have it, and it's an hour-and-a-half car ride to go from one event to another. It's nonsense. It's French Quarter, everything's walkable. Here, everything's a 10-minute car ride, right? So I think
JVT out there in San Francisco can attest to that. He's been driving all over the place to do these various things.
I mean, you're absolutely right. It's wild how crazy this is set up, Mike, to have. And again, it's kind of a media thing, but it does help with the impact of how you feel the game in the city. Being at the last 2 and then being here, it's detached from everything. The fact that their players are an hour and a half away from everything else, you don't really get that sense. Media members having to go down there, the stadium being as far away as it is, and you just really appreciate, like you said, Vegas, the way it's set up, how great it is, how the city's ready as well for all those people to come in. I mean, my streets are shut down here. When you take Uber rides and stuff, I had to buy, you guys will like this story, I had to, Mike, for our Radio Row setup, and we needed an extra table, I had to take an Uber to a Lowe's and then have the Uber then drop me off like half a mile away from the convention center. I had to walk through the streets of San Francisco with a table because it's all shut down and wild. Like they're not really ready for this.
Yeah. We're ready for this every weekend in Las Vegas, right? This kind of people come. They just come in, whether it's a sporting event or a convention or a concert. This happens every weekend here.
You guys have stayed pretty firm at the spread and total all week long.
Yep. Haven't moved off the number. 4.5 -10 both ways since last Tuesday, and we've been at 45 since Monday. I don't really see it moving too much. I know a couple books went to 5, and a lot of the 4.5s around town are juiced in favor of the Seahawks. We tend to get more of the more professional action, which will tend to try to fade the public. And the public is definitely on the side of the Seahawks here. So I think we'll probably stay at 4.5. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the total ticks down a little bit more. I like the game under myself. I can see both defenses having a very good effort here. Now, I talked to my source in Minneapolis, who has been talking to the Vikings defensive coaches, who thinks these 2 defenses will attack this game from opposite directions. They believe that, or should, they believe that Seattle should try to take away anything over the top for Drake May and make him be very patient and go short. As a young quarterback, it's hard to be patient. Make him go through his progressions. And they believe that defensively, New England should take away everything easy for Darnold and try to make him beat them over the top and try to create turnovers from that perspective. Now, Minnesota did the best job of anybody defending Seattle this year. They held Darnold to 120 yards, 3.3 yards per play, was sacked 4 times. They only had 1 offensive touchdown in that game.
You like any props, Mike?
So I bet a few props. I certainly have. I think this will be a lower scoring game. I wrote in the VSiN guide, and boy, you can become a VSiN Pro subscriber for less than half the cost of the guide for the first month. That's a no-brainer. But nice write-ups by everyone that put paragraphs together. I was impressed by that, and Adam Burke did a great job. But I have 19-17 Seahawks in this game. I think it will be a good defensive game, and I think there will be more field goals. Remember, these two coaches don't go fourth down crazy. They're two of the lower percentages in the league and going on fourth down. So I like over 3.5 field goals. I like Myers, the Seattle kicker, to have more than 1.5 and more than 2.5 field goals. I bet him for MVP at 150 to 1. I bet JSN's, based on what the Minnesota folks said, JSN's longest reception over 29.5 yards. And I bet Diggs more than 4.5 receptions based on what they said as well. And then my favorite prop of all is, which is greater, the distance of the longest field goal made or the total points in the game? And I laid 120, the distance of the longest field goal made.
That's kind of fun.
I like that prop a
I
lot.
saw there's another prop too. It's like, will there be a field goal 55 plus, or you can ladder it
ladder.
depending on whatever the number is. A couple more things before we let you go. Maybe we will have some movement before the new show in Chicago that you're going to be on tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
Breaking down everything. What's the latest?
Yeah, on the Score. We're going to do it from Bar Canada. Called Palm Saturdays. It's 8 to 9 in Chicago, but obviously we'll be taping out here 6 to 7. Eventually we'll take callers, but they have to get used to that there's a live show in that spot. That's just been Westwood One programming for years. And it leads into a good baseball show they have with David Haw and Bruce Levine inside the clubhouse. Pat Foley, the legendary Blackhawks announcer, will be my guest on my first show. We're thinking about doing, Jonathan, this is interesting, some promos for the show. We might film some early next week. One of the vignettes is me riding into Bar Canada on a donkey with the dancing dealer waving palm branch. I think that's an interesting one, John.
I love the name and I love the vibe. That's absolutely fantastic. Will they wave the palm branches? They won't lay it at the donkey's feet?
No, they're going to wave them. They're going to wave them.
Speaking of hockey, I know you have some bets on the Olympics already.
I gave this out on Mitch and Paul, and the price has moved, obviously, because they won their first game. The Swedish women in Group B is a lock. That is such a weak group. And now it's moved from 230 to like minus 350, but they won't lose it. They're going to be a 2.5 goal favorite in every game in that group play. USA women, folks, this is a layup. I've been talking about this for 6 months. It's now around 135, 150. They played Canada 4 times in that series that leads up to it.
4 wins?
6-2 was the average score. I remember the year in 2002 in Salt Lake City, and Cassie Campbell Pascal's team won gold after losing 8 straight times to the American women. All of those games were 1 or 2 goal games. There is a distinct advantage. USA is much better than Canada. Bet that. And then to medal, or you could bet to bronze or silver, the Czech Republic on the men's side. Everybody's sleeping on this. You get Lukas Dostal with a team that actually will play defense in front of him, unlike the Ducks.
I have heard actually that they could be a chippy, kind of sneaky team.
The Czechs will be dangerous.
Okay. And speaking of the USA-Canada women, we'll get a preview of that in the prelims, a preview gold medal game potentially coming up in just a few days on February 10th. You're awesome. Enjoy Super Bowl week. Enjoy the promo recording that you're doing for Palm Saturdays. We'll be right back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Here on this Football Friday edition of Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy Bonatoni, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. This segment of the program brought to you by Upside. Download the free Upside app and earn real cash back every time you fill up your tank. Use promo code SPORTS. Get 25 cents back per gallon on your first tank of gas. And hopefully our next guest will be a little bit nicer to me than Mike Palm was. You guys were just coming in too hot. I didn't like it. I know I can count on Will Hill for some positive energy as he joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line. VSiN host, analyst, also host of the Should Have Bet More podcast, joining us here. Will, what's going on, buddy?
What is going on? I don't know if you heard, the Super Bowl is Sunday. Seahawks and Patriots, they will be playing.
How tired are you of talking about this game? Based on your text message earlier, you're about done with it.
No, I mean, look, it's the Super Bowl. Once it starts and once you get there, I'm going to be as excited, as anything. It's funny though. I don't sense, and it's hard to quantify this. It's just, maybe it's just me and my surroundings. I don't sense. I'm curious if you guys agree. The buzz for this game, and I was thinking about this, talking about this a little on my podcast. The past 15, 20 years, we've basically had either Mahomes, Brady, Peyton Manning in this game every year. Maybe it's the fact that it's May and Darnold and people. I don't know. When you have Brady and Mahomes and Manning, it brings credibility. It's like, all right, you got some of these greatest quarterbacks of all time. There's just a natural, I don't know, credibility with the game, validation where it's Darnold, it's May. It doesn't feel like this was just a great year overall for the NFL. But I don't know if you guys agree, but I just don't get the sense that there's a ton of buzz for this game as there usually is.
I mean, I'm the wrong person to ask. I'm out here, so that's all that people are talking about out here for the most part. But I think I get the general sense in texting with some folks and whatnot that probably is the case. I mean, I think what maybe doesn't help, Will. I mean, we had a trade deadline that was sabotaged to an extent. We were supposed to be Giannis again moved. That's all people talked about, and then all of a sudden, the biggest move is maybe Ivica Zubac from the Los Angeles Clippers. So that kind of takes away from some of the shine, and the fact that I think what this also is a lot of people think the Seahawks are going to win comfortably, and I think that takes away from some of the drama around it.
Yeah, it's possible. And boy, I've never seen a team, Doc Rivers, the Bucs social media, a team just victory lapping. In fact, what are they, 20-29? They have none of their picks. They haven't won a playoff series, one in the last 5 years. A team just like victory lap. Oh, we told you so. Giannis isn't going anywhere like this. You're not in the NBA Finals. Calm down a little bit, Milwaukee. Jeez.
Will, Giannis with the tweet on his own social media yesterday of the Wolf of Wall Street, I'm not bleeping leaving. Okay, but you probably are in the offseason. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah. I mean, maybe they get somebody in the draft where their pick is decent enough where Giannis gets talked into staying. But I mean, you're talking about a 19, 20-year-old kid. He's probably not going to be ready to be the second best player on a title team until 2 or 3 years from now. I guess Milwaukee could take that pick and trade it. I don't know. I agree. It's very strange. It seems like Giannis is back and forth. Seems like a good guy, heart in the right place, wants to be with one team, all of that stuff. But seems like at the very least he is sending some mixed messages here in terms of being traded or not.
Yeah, he's a big baby. Like, just rip the Band-Aid off, say you want to leave, and let's get this over with. It's getting old. But, all right, let's talk a little bit more about the game itself. I know you're tired of this, but let's discuss a little bit of bets before we get to some of the other pieces around the NFL and the NBA. Let's start at MVP. Who do you think is going to win it and why?
Darnold, I'm still surprised. I know this number's come down a little bit. I'm still surprised you can get plus money. I mean, you said it. Everyone seems to think Seattle's going to win. Seattle's going to win comfortably. I know you're a JSN guy. I'm not rooting against your pick. I would never do that. I just think the narrative is so strong with these awards. It's a quarterback award, not to the extent that NFL regular season MVP is a quarterback award, but it's, I think, 8 of the last 12, 7 of the last 9, the last 3 in a row have all been quarterbacks. And Darnold, everyone loves him. This is his 5th team. Good guy, good with the media, all of that stuff. It's a great story. I think if he plays reasonably well and Seattle wins, I think the plus price on Darnold. And if you like Seattle, instead of laying the points with Seattle, I don't think it has to be your whole bet, but 25, 50% of what you're going to bet on Seattle, I don't think it's a bad investment to take it and invest the plus money here with Sam Darnold's win MVP.
VSiN host Will Hill joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line. I know there are a few props that we're going to get to, but off the top, I guess, is there any one in particular that you added to the portfolio this week that you really, really liked when you added it?
I have heard, and I'm curious, JVT, you being there and being around it, I've heard whispers from people that were, I don't know, the open part of practice here with New England that Henderson might be a bigger factor in the receiving game than people might think, and they've spent a lot of time the Patriots have on the screen game. So I like Henderson over 2.5. There's some 3.5. I always shop around, especially with these props in Super Bowl time. You're going to get a lot of variance in these numbers, but it's a low number. I think Henderson, who caught a pass against the Chargers, caught a pass against the Texans, didn't catch one against the Broncos in the 3 playoff games, but they didn't really throw the ball against Denver. And that game, got weird with the game script at the end here. So Henderson to basically catch a ball, go over 2.5 receiving yards, I think is a good play based on what I'm hearing in terms of their plans here to maybe negate here a good Seattle pass rush, where that's a nice thing to settle your young quarterback who might be nervous into the game with just give him a quick, easy throw on a screen, and you get home here with Henderson.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything specifically about Henderson, but just the fact that this pass rush is going to matter. And we've talked a lot about the left side of the offensive line for New England out here, Will. It comes up a lot. I've actually gotten to talk to a couple of former offensive linemen as well, including our own Jeff Schwartz, who we might hear from a little bit later about this very topic. But all of those things are going to factor into why maybe Henderson is going to be a little bit more active. And if you're going to scheme up a play to get one of these backs in space, it's going to be him.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Is Jeff big timing you? We can't get Jeff on. I'm going to shoot Jeff a text. What's going on? Is the agent giving you a hard time? What's going on with Jeff Schwartz?
No, I got Jeff. I sat down with him for like 15 minutes.
Okay.
I maybe messed up pulling in a clip yesterday, but I believe we have it today. Okay. I don't know.
We do. It's locked and loaded. We're going to get to it. So no more of this if and what if situation. We're doing it. Another prop you added was the Patriots have more than 3.5 punts. What led you to that market when you were going through the menu?
Yeah, hat tip Steve Fezzik. I wasn't aware of this one, and it's hard. I think it takes a little teamwork with the Super Bowl because the props, the menu is so expansive, and book to book it's different. Some books are going to offer what other books aren't, and vice versa. He gave this out, I think, on one of our group chats, and I like it. You got a team that has struggled offensively. You got a game with a fairly low total, and a lot of people think could be an under. The under has certainly gotten bet here. We know the Super Bowl is famous for being low scoring to start. I mean, the Patriots, I believe in the 9 Brady Super Bowls with New England, they scored 3 combined points. It's always slow starting on offense. You got a young quarterback. 3.5 punts in what could be a defensive game here is really not that many. So I like over 3.5. I think you can get it at FanDuel. Juice is like minus 140, minus 145-ish. Of course, shop around with any of this stuff, like I said, but I think that's a low number. I do like that bet quite a bit.
Anything else you like on your card here, Will?
I'll talk about one that hasn't been discussed much. Matt Humans and I were doing VSiN Primetime last week. He brought it up. I think it's Circa that had it. Might be Westgate. But will the final score of the Super Bowl match any previous Super Bowl final score? Yes, it's plus 400. To me, if nothing else, I think the 4-1 is interesting. But if nothing else, points for creativity. That is a clever one. You win on 58 different scores because I went through it. The only repeat final score is 27-17. There was a Redskins Super Bowl, and I believe it was the Steelers and Cowboys, which is interesting. We've had 59 Super Bowls, only one repeat score. But again, points for being clever there, and 4-1 is one where, you know what, you got action the whole game. At the end, you can just start looking at previous scores and seeing what you root for here. But I thought that was an interesting one.
I do love the creativity, and you're getting involved in some of the fun ones. These aren't your big full unit plays, but just something fun to have a full game sweat, like you said. And while we do have to wait a couple more days still for the biggest game of the year in the NFL, there's a really big game in college basketball coming up today in the Big East. We got UConn and St. John's going head to head. UConn riding this 18-game win streak. St. John's on an 8-game win streak of their own, and they got the better of UConn in the series both games last year. How do you think things play out tonight?
Yeah, Madison Square Garden, JVT's favorite place. Basketball just means more at Madison Square Garden. We all know that, JVT. I like UConn here. I just think they played a much tougher non-conference schedule. Every time St. John's has stepped up in competition, I know they won 9 in a row. They played better. Patino's a good coach, going to improve them. They played 4 tournament caliber teams so far in non-conference. St. John's did. They lost to Iowa State, Alabama, Auburn, and Kentucky. You look at UConn's non-conference, beat BYU, won at Kansas, beat Illinois, beat Florida. We know MSG for them is kind of the home away from home. UConn travels really well. That's going to be, I think, a pretty neutral court tonight. I just think UConn is more battle-tested here. I will go with the Huskies here, laying the short number.
Will, you're awesome. Don't work too
sorry.
hard. I know you got a lot to do the next couple days. What's up? Can you hear us now?
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
You cut out when you...
All right. Goodbye, JVT. And thank you, Will Hill. You're awesome. On that note, before we head out and hit the break here, I do want to remind all of you at home, saving money on gas is easier than ever right now with the free Upside app. Just download the app, check nearby offers, earn cash back every time you fill up. Promo code SPORTS will also get you an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. Drivers are seeing $200 to $300 a year back just from their normal commute. Takes seconds to use. You can cash out anytime to your bank or gift cards. Download the free Upside app today and use promo code SPORTS. Offers vary by user and location. Visit upside.com for details. JVT, do we have you now? Are you there?
No, I was being sarcastic. He was talking about Madison Square Garden.
Oh, okay. Well, It didn't land with me. On that note, we got to take a quick time
Yeah,
out when we come back. We will actually maybe head back out to the Garden. We got some college basketball, some NBA to discuss. The Knicks are on an 8-game win and cover streak. Can that continue today as well? Don't go anywhere for more Money Moves after this and more sarcasm from JVT as well.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, wrapping up hour one of Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158, iHeartRadio, YouTube TV, the VSiN Watch app, wherever you're watching or listening today. We appreciate it. You want to join in on any of the conversation, or if you got some questions for the GOAT, Brent Musburger, who we're going to have coming up on the show in hour two, tweet at us, at MeJVT, at Storm Bonantoni, at VSiN Live. Going to get into some NBA here, though, because JVT, the winometer continues to go up, up, and away for our Charlotte Hornets, who are now up to 24 wins and just beat the Rockets last night by 10 as a 4.5-point dog. 8th straight win for them, 6-2 covering over this stretch, too. They're on fire.
They are. This is a legitimately dangerous team, I believe. Now, dangerous in the sense of winning the NBA Finals, probably not. But when you look at the way they're constructed, Stormy, if you were to get into a first-round series with them, Detroit, New York, it's not going to be a fun series for you, and they're going to make some teams sweat. The upside on offense is incredible. That starting five is one of the most efficient starting fives in the association, maybe the most efficient starting five from an offensive rating standpoint. They've been incredible. So the upside here is great. Maybe in the offseason that leads them to start to try to buy a little bit more and try to really maximize what they're going to do. But as we've discussed, we're 2 wins away from the win total cashing. We feel very confident that that should be able to happen here. It'd be a near mathematical, I don't want to say impossibility, but it'd be crazy if we lost out on this win total.
That'd be awful.
I don't know if I would ever, I don't know what I would do. But you know what has become more realistic, and we have discussed this at very long odds, they are only 3 games back in the division. They were at 1.6 games away, but they have cut into this deficit with a massive, massive slash. Now, all of a sudden, it's a realistic expectation that they could win the Southeast Division. That is pretty big, because remember, they were like 120-1 to do so. I know we have a longer odds on to make the play-in, to make the playoffs, but I believe Mitch, who we talked about this on Pod of the Futures many weeks ago, has that triple digits on them to win the division, and that is a realistic chance now for this team to be able to get this done, but you got to keep this going. I believe this weekend coming up, they have Atlanta. That's going to be a pretty big opportunity for them. That is a divisional game, so you have to be able to win some of those. But you said it. They're winning. They're covering. They're efficient. They're very dangerous. And if they can stay healthy and get to the postseason, they're going to be a team that is not going to be fun to play in the first round.
Yeah, getting more and more real the way that they have produced. And I mean, even in that game last night, Brandon Miller was in early foul trouble, didn't play most of the second quarter. And they still, at one point, were out by as many as 22, hitting 40% from 3, 17 made 3-pointers. Also, not only just this 8-game win streak, but covering since December 5th, JVT, 21-9 against the number, what they've been able to do. So they have been exciting. Another team, by the way, it's on a pretty nice stretch of their own. 8-0 straight up their last 8-0 against the spread as well. The New York Knicks, who are taking on the Detroit Pistons today, they have been on a tear over that stretch. Their defensive efficiency has been better than anybody in the NBA. They opened a 2-point dog today. Obviously, you look at the injury report against the Pistons. Detroit laying 3.5 now, where I'm seeing across the board. What do you see?
Yeah, it's looking at 3.5 right now. I think that's what I'm looking at. The screen's lighting up, but we're still sitting in that range. Some 4s were popping, but those 4s just disappeared as you were talking. This is going to be an interesting spot. It's going to be a charged spot. This is a third game in 4 nights for the Knicks, but this is a 3-4 and a second leg of a back-to-back for the Pistons when you look at their scheduling situation. So that is going to be a situation that works against them here. And I think why you start to see some of the money coming in, cutting down on that big number. We also know that Jalen Duren Garland is questionable to play tonight, so that's going to be very big for this team as well, and whether or not he is going to be out there. But on the other side, OG Anunoby is questionable himself. So there's a couple of names that are on this injury report that you want to monitor. But at the end of the day, how many times have we discussed this throughout the regular season? You try to fly in the face of some of these situational spots, and they do tend to kind of bite you here. And this is a lot of basketball in a short stretch and an emotionally charged environment. Knicks and Pistons are kind of emerging as a mini little rivalry here. As you remember, they played last year, and talking to our friend from the Detroit Free Press about how they really get up for these games. So I think it's going to be a tough spot. And I would agree that if you can go and grab some rogue fours, that would be the side. And of course, if OG Anunoby ends up playing, that's going to be a more impactful thing. Or if he doesn't, it's obviously going to be impactful in the other direction. But would lean toward the Knicks here if you tell me that OG Anunoby is going to be out there. And if you can grab that 4, that I think is the way to go.
Talking NBA here on Money Moves, Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. We mentioned with Will Hill on the program a little bit ago, everything that's going on with the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis obviously doesn't get moved ahead of the trade deadline, all of the commentary that's come out of there. They are hosting the Pacers today. And initially, after the Giannis injury, they lost 3 straight. They've won a couple now. They're getting 1.5 at home today against Indiana, total 222.5. Anything stand out to you in this one?
Yeah, it's funny. It's like we talked about the other day with some of these games. It's what sample size do you want to use? Do you want to use the sample size that tells you Milwaukee has covered its last 2 games and won both of them and is playing much better? Or do you want to zoom out further and say that those 2 covers come after a stretch in which they had lost and failed to cover 5 consecutive games, and that actually they're not really playing better in a larger sense? Meanwhile, Indiana, if you look at this team, they've been showing like some signs of potentially starting to turn this thing around. Obviously, health was a really big part of that. They have covered 4 out of their last 6 games. Stormy, they're starting to look a little bit more efficient on offense as well. But I lean a little bit toward Milwaukee here. It's not a big flip, but you're talking about Indiana in the role of a road favorite in some shops. And that to me it makes me a little squeamish knowing what we know about Indiana, what's gotten them to this point. They are much healthier. They're a more talented team, especially with the absence of Giannis Antetokounmpo. You want to make sure that some of these other names are going to be out there for them. But for the most part, the role players that have been there are going to be out there with them tonight. By the way, Noah Zubac, he actually just had a child, and he won't be playing tonight. So the new toy out there for Indiana will not be available. But I think Indiana, I'd rather roll in the direction of Milwaukee. And it's a similar situation, too, by the way, with the Clippers. Benedict Mathurin had missed a lot of time, Stormy, so we talked about that dynamic of Cleveland and L.A. and the fact that, hey, the Cavaliers are probably the better bet because they've been used to playing with the rotation without Darius Garland. It's not going to affect them in that game after the trade. Indiana as well, shipping off a big piece like Benedict Mathurin might be somewhat impactful, but he hasn't really been playing this year, and I think this is a team that can overcome some of the absences in this rotation that were shipped off in that trade for Ivica Zubac.
Well, speaking of the Clippers, they're at the Kings later on tonight. Anything stand out to you from a numbers standpoint diving into that game?
Yeah, I just wonder, should this team still be rated the way that they are? Zubac is gone. Kawhi Leonard is kind of a solo act at this point right now. Harden obviously is on the way out too. And yet here they are laying 3.5 on the road against the Sacramento Kings. Now at full strength with Harden and Zubac out there, we're talking about a higher number. But, look, this did not look like a very inspired group against the Cavaliers the other day. And now they're another man short without Zubac out there. I kind of lean toward maybe playing against this Clippers team until the market snaps back. Their power rating's still kind of high. Look, maybe Kawhi can do it on his own, but this is going to be a really interesting team to follow as we move forward because they did not look good against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And think about that, like from a mental standpoint. Don't you think that's kind of sapping when you're rolling the way that you are, playing as well as you are, and then all of a sudden the trade deadline comes around and the front office is like, "Nah, see you, Harden. Nope, Zubac is gone. We're actually selling. We're done here." That has to be some sort of mental tax to that as well, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that yesterday, and just like how strange and off-putting it felt to an extent. But I guess if you're James Harden, you want it out and you're going to get your way, and then you continue to offload. We were even asking the question yesterday about would Kawhi Leonard be next? Obviously, he's not. But yes, from a team standpoint, you're probably not nearly as excited about where your roster is at right now, big picture. But again, 3.5 what they're laying tonight, total 222.5. While out there in California, might as well talk about what transpired last night with the Los Angeles Lakers and Luka Doncic injured in the second quarter of that win over Philadelphia, having an MRI eval today. I haven't seen anything come out on that yet. Missed 8 games this year with various leg injuries. They just got Austin Reeves back, JVT, and we've only seen 10 games or so this year with he, LeBron, and Luka all together at the same time. What do you make of the injury, and could this be a concern for Laker backers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be. Look, this team has, as you mentioned, dealt with these injuries throughout the season. They're also just kind of a fraudulent team, as we have discussed. I mean, we've talked about them bowing up against some of these big teams and then falling flat on their face. They get it done yesterday. I don't know if you want to count the 76ers as one of those teams, but they're very clearly flawed. The fact that Luka Doncic can be out there and still, over the course of 100 possessions, they can be at net negative or barely positive is a problem and speaks to where this team is at. And so now, if it's going to be an extended absence, I think you're really going to feel that here for LA. And we've kind of been waiting for them to slip down the standings. We've talked about this. They've obviously been playing at a little bit more of a 500 pace as opposed to what they were doing at the beginning of the season. And remember, too, how good they've been in clutch time, Stormy. A big reason why they are good in those clutch games is because you have a shot creator like Luka Doncic who can operate the way that he can in those tight contests. And if that's going to be hindered, if he's going to be gone, then all of a sudden your luck in those games, should you find yourself in them as they pull off another one here, right, as a 4-point game, then I think that's really going to hurt them as well.
One game clear of the play-in zone right now. They do have the All-Star break coming up next week, so that helps. Also, their next 7 games are at home. So if this is a short-term injury, all of those things are certainly going to benefit LA where you sit right now. Only time will tell, though, when we find out more on the severity. Obviously, we will discuss that there. We got to step aside here on Money Moves, but when we come back, kicking off hour 2 of the program, a heavy, as expected, Super Bowl 60 hour on deck, including the official pick from the one and only Brent Musburger on the program. Don't go anywhere.